On September 11, 2001, at 8:45 a.m., on a clear Tuesday morning, an American airline Boeing 767 loaded with 20,000 gallons of jet fuel crashed into the North Tower of the Trade Center in New York City. The impact left a gaping, burning hole near the 80th floor of the 110th-story skyscraper, instantly killing hundreds of people and trapping hundreds more in higher floors. As the evacuation of the tower and its twin got underway, television cameras broadcasted live images of what initially appeared to be a freak accident.
Here in New York, I'm Brian Gumble. We understand that there has been a plane crash on the southern tip of Manhattan. You're looking at the World Trade Center. We understand that a plane has crashed into the World Trade Center.
Then, at 9:03, 18 minutes after the first plane hit, a second Boeing 767 United Airlines Flight 175 appeared out of the sky, turned sharply towards the World Trade Center, and sliced into the South Tower near the 60th floor. The collision caused a massive explosion and showered burning debris over surrounding buildings and onto the streets below. It immediately became clear that America was under attack.
As millions watched the events unfolding in New York, American Airlines Flight 77 circled over downtown Washington, D.C., before crashing over the west side of the Pentagon military headquarters at 9:45 a.m. Jet fuel from the Boeing 757 caused a devastating inferno that led to the structural collapse of a portion of the giant concrete building, which is the headquarters of the U.S. Department of Defense. All told, 125 military personnel and civilians were killed in the Pentagon, along with all 64 people aboard the airliner.
Less than 15 minutes after the terror struck the nerve center of the U.S. military, the horror in New York took a catastrophic turn when the South Tower of the World Trade Center collapsed in a massive cloud of dust and smoke. The structural steel of the skyscraper, built to withstand winds in excess of 200 miles per hour and a large conventional fire, could not withstand the tremendous heat generated by the burning jet fuel. At 10:30 a.m., the north building of the Twin Towers collapsed. Only 6 people in the World Trade Center towers at the time of their collapse survived. Almost 10,000 others were treated for their injuries, many severe.
Meanwhile, a 4th California-bound plane, United Flight 93, was hijacked about 40 minutes after leaving Newark Liberty International Airport in New Jersey. Because the plane has been delayed and taken off, passengers on board learned of the event in New York and Washington via cell phone and airphone calls to the ground. Knowing that the aircraft was not returning to the airport as the hijackers claimed, a group of passengers and flight attendants planned an insurrection. One of the passengers, Simon Burnett Jr., told his wife over the phone that, "I know we're going to die. There's 3 of us and we're going to do something about it. I love you, honey." Another passenger, Tom Beamer, was heard saying, "Are you guys ready? Let's roll," over an open line.
Sandy Bradshaw, a flight attendant, called her husband and explained that she had slipped into a galley and was filling pitchers with boiling water. Her last words to him were, "Everyone's running to first class. I've got to go. Bye." The passengers fought the 4 hijackers and are suspected to have attacked the cockpit with a fire extinguisher. The plane then flipped over and sped towards the ground at upwards of 500 miles per hour, crashing in a rural field near Shanksville in western Pennsylvania at 10:10 a.m.
A total of 2,996 people were killed in the 9/11 attacks, including the 19 terrorist hijackers aboard the 4 airplanes. Citizens of the 78 countries died in New York, Washington, D.C., and Pennsylvania. At the World Trade Center, 2,763 died after the 2 planes slammed into the Twin Towers. That figure includes 343 firefighters and paramedics, 23 New York City police officers, and 37 Port Authority police officers who were struggling to complete an evacuation of the buildings and save the office workers trapped on the high floors. At the Pentagon, 189 people were killed, including 64 on American Airlines Flight 77, the airline that had struck the building. On Flight 93, 44 people died when the plane crash landed in Pennsylvania.
Shock, sadness, fear, anger. The 9/11 attacks inflicted a devastating emotional toll on Americans, as well as the world. In the days and weeks after 9/11, we tried to come to terms with what happened. And while the smoke was still drifting over the piles of rubble, we seemed to come to a collective realization. We didn't only bear witness to a tragedy, we didn't only mourn the loss of life, we took it personally. It wasn't just an attack on our institutions, it wasn't just an attack on the United States, it was an attack on democracy, on our way of life, on what we collectively stood for as a human race. And in that realization, we came together, and we would face this tragedy, one nation, one world, indivisible.
We realized, perhaps for the first time in generations, that we stood for something more than ourselves as individuals. More than about getting ahead for our own ends, right now, we are a nation in conflict, and in many cases, chaos. We are reeling from racial injustice, sharp political division, and an overwhelming and deadly health crisis for which there appears to be no end in sight. If we wish to honor the victims and heroes of September 11th on the 20th anniversary of this tragedy, we could do no less than remember that when everything seems to be coming apart, we respond by coming together.
And I would like to thank everybody for tuning into this special broadcast brought to you by Collins Career and Technical Center in remembrance of the 9/11 attacks in 2001. At this time, we have compiled a video from many of our teachers here at Collins. We're going to go ahead and show that to you, and you'll be back with me afterwards.
I was actually in bed asleep when the first plane hit. I remember I was at my mom's, and my sister came in my room, woke me up, said a plane had hit the Trade Center.
I was at school. I was a junior in high school.
I had went to school that morning. I was in elementary school at the time, and they had just brought in TVs and monitors, and the teachers found out about it that morning. But I was at school when it actually happened.
I was at work at the Lawrence County Alternative School.
I was in basic training in the United States Army.
I was actually here at Collins Career Technical Center. At that point in time, I was a junior here in math class, and we were actually watching it after it happened. We were watching it live on a TV during that class.
My immediate reaction, we were confused. A supervisor came down the hallway and told us to turn our TVs on.
When I first found out about it after school, I was upset. Didn't really know what to think. I was still a kid.
Upset, angry, in disbelief, shocked, like all of these words to describe it.
I was scared.
Shock, horror. The Twin Towers were iconic, and to hear that someone or something had attacked us was very, very concerning to me.
Very, very anxiety-driven.
I was also upset. I was mad. It's like, how can this be happening here in America? It's like, how can this happen?
It was heartbreaking and sad. Everybody was scared and worried about what was going on and if it was going to be worse.
Quite surreal, and when those buildings fell that day, to watch that on live TV and just to watch just the way it all just came. Surreal is probably about the best. It was hard to believe. It was hard to believe that you were actually watching something.
Watching the news all day long, seeing what was going on, especially when the towers fell, it was just unbelievable.
even more horrific. It seemed almost unreal. I didn't know what was going to come next. I thought it was just the beginning of something huge, and I knew how many people were in that building.
I got several family members in New York. Several did pass away.
I didn't think it was possible. You know, we got oceans on both sides of us. I didn't think it was possible. And then 9/11 hit, and I knew we could. Yeah. It put a new fear in me, and it took away that sense of security.
You can kind of remember a time before 9/11 and a time after, right? Things definitely changed after that event.
You didn't really care if you were Republican or Democrat. You were an American first. Like you worked to help your neighbor. Just the people came together and helped each other.
Everywhere you looked, there was an American flag on the corner. It just brought us all together.
It brought us to our knees, but then it made us stronger, and you could see how everyone put aside the petty differences and everyone joined together and supported each other.
But I do feel like everyone came together, and it was kind of like, all right, it's, we might have our differences and we might not agree on things, but somebody attacked us, and it's us against them, so to speak, or I felt like it really brought the country together.
On September 11th, 2001, 2,977 people were killed in the deadliest terrorist attacks in American history. The moment shocked the nation. 2 planes, hijacked by Islamic jihadists, plowed into both towers at the World Trade Center in New York. Another plane was flown into the Pentagon in Washington, D.C. A 4th plane, presumably headed for the White House or the U.S. Capitol, was heroically diverted by passengers and ended up crashing in an empty field in Pennsylvania. After reports of the first plane hitting the North Tower, millions watched the second plane hit the South Tower on live television. It was terrifying. It was a terrifying, startling, and humbling event for the country. The 9/11 attacks were the deadliest on American soil since the shock attack at Pearl Harbor 60 years before, and the sense of outrage was reminiscent of that moment. The attacks in New York occurred in the country's busiest city on a workday, and the staggered nature of the attacks meant that news footage captured almost everything as it happened, ensuring that millions of Americans saw the events precisely as they unfolded. At 8:46 a.m., Flight 11 crashes into World Trade Center's North Tower. All passengers aboard instantly killed, and employees of the World Trade Center are trapped above the 91st floor. At 9:03 a.m., Flight 175 crashes into the World Trade Center's South Tower. All passengers aboard are killed instantly, and so are an unknown number of people in the tower. At 9:28 a.m., hijackers attack on Flight 93. 9:37 a.m., Flight 77 crashes into the Pentagon. All passengers aboard are instantly killed, and so are 125 civilian and military personnel in the building. At 9:59 a.m., the South Tower of the World Trade Center collapses. At 10:02 a.m., Flight 93 plows into an empty field in Shanksville, Pennsylvania. Although its ultimate target is unknown, it was likely headed for either the White House or the U.S. Capitol. At 10:28 a.m., the North Tower of the World Trade Center collapses. And finally, at 5:30 p.m., Building 7 of the World Trade Center also collapses. We want to thank everyone who is viewing and tuned in for this special broadcast brought to you by Collins Career and Technical Center, and we shall never forget the attacks that happened on 9/11/2001.